Man, this
Or-
deep state. What would be the Dune equivalent of deep state conspiracy? Like deep CHOAM. This deep CHOAM conspiracy.
Oh, please don't say deep CHOAM.
I know. I had to.
Hello, and welcome to Gum Jabber with the Mua'Dweebs, America's favorite podcast about daddies and sandworms.
Auga! Auga!
That was perfect.
Okay, great. This week we're talking about, oh god, what have we done? We're talking about chapters 7 through 11, technically?
11 through 14.
No.
11, 12, 11 through 15.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, 10 through 14.
No, we did 3, and then we did 4, 5, 6, and then we did 7, 8,
I'm
9,
waiting.
10, and now we're on 11, 12, 13.
Except, we're going to rediscuss 10, because we never really got to it last time.
Okay, so we are on 10 and a half through
Sure,
13.
and a half, because I at least read 14.
What the hell?
That's ambitious. I don't know why you want to go back to this 4 chapters that we couldn't actually complete last time.
Because it's the only interesting chapter in the pile. But anyway, Lily
I disagree.
seems like she has
disagree.
something to
I
say.
love PowerPoint presentations and accounting books readings. I was really into that chapter.
I just want to know, like, why not number the chapters? What is up with Herbert? Is that just some pretense? Is that his hipster affect before hipster affect was... No, I guess hipsters technically
Well,
exist.
I think actually we've talked about this in episode 1, but in other editions of the book, the quotations are not page breaks.
Right. But why are there...
Really?
So it's just one long rambling text. Like, that's irritating.
Well, we divided into like 3 sections.
Okay, whatever.
You know.
You know, if Princess Aurelian was in charge, this shit would have numbers. That's all I'm saying.
It's true. Each of these would be a different book. That way she gets a different advance on each one.
Paul Atreides is a skanky, stinky whore. I hate him. Princess Aurelian.
Yeah.
Well, so far she's done 6 different texts that we've quoted.
Okay. Are you compiling a spreadsheet?
Well, there's the manual of Mua'Dweeb.
No,
And there's...
I just want to know if you have a spreadsheet.
No, I have a list.
Okay.
I don't need a spreadsheet for 6 things.
In a grid of cells that is maybe pivotable or cross-tabulated with a separate sheet. That so weird?
I do love spreadsheets, as Alec was trying to allude to.
Oh, me too, bro.
Okay, so are we going to talk about the garden chapter, or are we going to move straight on to the actual chapters?
It's your party, Alec.
No,
let's talk about it.
Let's go back. What do you got to say about the garden? The
I
weirding
don't know
room?
if I actually have anything more to say.
Okay, I will say that maybe the end of that chapter was one of my favorite scenes. I just thought it was really vivid how they look out over the landscape of Dune and the mountains, and they see the flashing lights and the coded signal, and it just really painted a really, really, really cool picture.
I guess also the other thing I wanted to bring into it is just that Paul and Jessica have the same conversation about Thufir that then, like, Leto and Paul have about Thufir, like...
And then Thufir and Leto have about Jessica.
Yes. So thematically it echoes down the other chapters that we did for this week.
And Paul and Jessica have the same conversation about Yui that then is had again about Yui.
Yes.
3 chapters later.
There's some redundancy here. Much like in their
well, everyone's on the same
account.
page. Everyone's on the same page of liking to suspect and then discount that suspect of everybody. They've really got their shit together.
Who suspects Yui? Nobody is. That's kind of the thing.
No, they both have the same conversation of, oh, it couldn't be Yui.
Right. That's what I want to talk about. I know we're still on the garden chapter, but when it gets to later in this, are we ready to talk about this? When it's like, oh, someone beloved to you is going to betray you, and old Duke jumps immediately to, he doesn't even finish the sentence, right? And he's like, not Jessica. It's like, he didn't even say Jessica. He didn't even finish his sentence, and you went right the hell there, Duke. Everybody goes right to Jessica, and no one thinks that the doctor with the missing wife that none of them seem to talk about or acknowledge.
No, they do. They bring it up, and then they say, but it couldn't be him. And he immediately justifies his comment about Jessica, saying that... Why are we jumping all the way to the end of this whole
Sorry,
section? No, it's fine. It's fine. It's relevant. It's really tying these 2 weeks together. He ties it back in. He says that even if it's not true, the whole point of indicating that it's true could be the purpose of this plot, right? Just to make him suspect and to tear him apart with suspicion over him and his beloved Jessica. So either way, it's brilliant to try to implicate her.
Right, but I think Lily's point is like the note says like, "Hey, Dumder, somebody gonna hurt you," and he's like, "Not Jessica."
No, well, it says if you could do that, if you could reread whatever you just said, but also then indicate that it's someone like beloved to him, like someone really important, which then could only encompass a few people.
Interesting. Okay.
It's specific that it's someone that would really, really hurt him. Specifically.
Maybe.
Not Jessica!
I'll find the quote if you need me to.
No, I had to go back and reread it when I was there. But, okay, so everyone talks about it, and the consensus is not Yui. We all think it's Jessica, but we're all agreeing it can't be Jessica, but we're all thinking it. But we're
gonna
not.
pretend it's Jessica.
Well, hold on. If you take that short list of people closest to Leto, you've got Howitt himself, and as soon as it happens, actually, the very first thing is he says, "I'd sooner cut off my arms than hurt you." So, that was, and they've already been talking about whether or not it's him, and then they come to the conclusion. Him and Leto and Paul come to the conclusion it's not Howitt. He's just old. They really go at this whole old thing. At some point, they mention how he walks in, looking older and more leathery than he ever has before.
Greg just said that to me this morning.
It's a sweet thing to say to somebody, to quote Dune in that fashion.
Was he specifically saying that he didn't suspect you of betraying him?
Right, he's like, hey, I found this weird note, but just to be clear, even though I thought of you immediately, I know it's not you, okay?
You're just too old.
All right, so the garden scene. Did we get everything we wanted to out of that?
Yeah, I think so. I just kind of like, I was in a fog.
Oh, hold on. I did find the quote, and it is important here. The fragment of note says, and it doesn't even say Leto's full name. It cuts off the L. It's just the ETO. Eto will never suspect, and when the blow falls on him from a beloved hand. So it's natural that he would go to someone beloved, like that he would not expect, which would naturally then be the person closest to him.
I mean, I get it. It's still fucked up, though, that everyone, not Jessica. That's gonna be my battle cry. If old Patrick Stewart went into battle yelling "For Leto," I'm gonna go into battle. Not Jessica. Sorry. Okay, so we jump right to the end.
I do like that in his head he says, "What a slimy piece of business. There can't be anything in it. I know my woman."
Yeah, okay, so this is just, it's inveighing me to want to just launch into one of my like Leto is a dope kind of tirades. But actually what I think we should touch on instead is the really interesting parallel that Josh thought of in between, like yesterday when we were talking about it, of who Leto could be an allegory or analog to.
Well, yeah, okay, that's fine. I was also going to say that, we're talking about Leto's a dope, and if you were to go to the first quote of the first chapter for this week, it does kind of touch on that, which is, it is said that Duke Leto blinded himself to the perils of Arrakis, that he walked heedlessly into the pit. Would it not be more likely to suggest he had lived so long in the presence of extreme danger he misjudged a change in its intensity? Or is it possible he deliberately sacrificed himself that his son might find a better life? All evidence indicates the Duke was a man not easily hoodwinked. From Mua'Dweebs Family Commentaries by the Princess Irulan.
So, on the one hand, sure, and that even plays into the Dune-spiracy, right? In that sort of everybody's going into this knowing that the Duke is going to die, and they're all doing it basically to test Paul and for Paul's sake. On the other hand, Irulan's protestations aside, all the evidence indicates that the Duke is a man easily hoodwinked.
Well, that's really funny because it seems like so often you read specifically the thing that is the opposite of what you've been led to believe by the text, right? Like everything is contrary. Everything that's said is specifically contrary to what it looks like. And I find it interesting that line comes from a third party after the fact in hindsight. I also really, I just keep finding myself hitting this like very noticeable confirmation bias where I'm seeing lines like, is it possible he deliberately sacrificed himself that his son might find a better life? Well, did he deliberately sacrifice himself? Or is this that same thing where, him and Jessica both like, we should have gone somewhere else, but there was this whole plot to make him go there to put Paul in power, to test him.
And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole right at the beginning, but of course, Irulan is a Bene Gesserit.
Well, there you go.
So if anybody was trying to rewrite this history, I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes perfect sense.
Wait, so all that to say he is a big old dupe and a dope and
well, he's getting played, right? It seems like he's getting played real hard.
But for some historical reason, maybe, or, to please.
Here's my proof that the guy is just a doofus. I guess these aren't his words, but the notice above his signature, our sublime Padishah Emperor is charged me to take possession of this planet and end all disputes. And I just love that because it's so, it's just so fatuous. Like, yes, you know how you can end disputes? All of history has proved this. The best way to settle civil war, interracial strife, sort of ethnic tensions is to just colonize and take possession of something. That's going to sort it all out, guys. This is the best way to put it to rest.
Well, but he knows that, right?
He knows it's silly. I was thinking it was his quote when I was just looking down at my underlining, but
right,
he's still like doing it, and he's still talking about like we gotta make the money, and he still definitely sees the Fremen as like a resource to be mined, either sort of socially mined and get like why the hell would the Fremen send legions of men to fight for this guy, right? Why?
I mean, yes, he is.
Oh, so hang on, this still gets into Josh's thing.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I mean, I do think that he sees them as, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and
number one Atreides mistake.
That is true.
They all do it, and it helps none of them.
Well, that is literally the line that convinces Jessica that it's not Yui, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that is ultimately seems like their biggest downfall. But what I was thinking was, these 3 chapters, you see the Duke portrayed as someone incredibly politically savvy, someone who really cares about his people. He seems to also care about liberating the free folk.
Lily. We'll show you what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, he seems like he's going over the books. He's saying the right thing. You can even see that Paul is impressed with even the perfect tone that Leto uses multiple times when conveying certain items. And and then you have this line from the princess saying that he's not easily hoodwinked. So they're always portraying him as this like consummate politician who's incredibly savvy, and then potentially dead. And I was saying that there's this there's this really, so soon into him taking power in this new place. And I asked Alec, what year was JFK what years was JFK president? And it was 2 to 4 years prior to the book being written.
Yeah, and so like I think I agree though that like JFK was probably really heavily in Herbert's mind when he was writing the Duke Leto character.
Fascinating. Well, I
so,
don't know if I've told you this.
Like when you even in the beginning of this, right? Duke Leto Atreides leaned against a parapet of the landing. He's just like a cool dude, just out leaning. He's just like this suave, thick-haired.
He knows his woman.
Yeah.
Like he's. And he's staying single because he's like that eligible bachelor, right? Like, there's that whole.
So there's some really interesting class stuff I wanted to get into too, though, that also goes into the enemy of my enemy is my friend thing, right?
Well, before you get to that, I want to go back to something you said, which was talking about when you asked if Frank Herbert thought that Leto's behavior was charming. And I think he did, based on this new theory.
Oh, interesting. Huh. Okay.
I mean, look, I've got my...
Is that
I've got my gum jabber here.
Oh, my God. How do we show this in audio format?
Oh, well, we've got a recording of this. I'll just take a screen cap of the recording, and we'll put it on the Instagram.
Wow.
You didn't want to, in the last episode, let me do my segment on my top 5 favorite things to fidget with at my desk, but one of them included a piece of saran wrap that was fidgeted around my finger, and only now did I realize is a gum jabbar. So there you go. This is what you miss when you don't let me do my side piece segments.
Speaking of side pieces,
Jessica, not Jessica. Not Jessica.
Not my woman.
Not my woman.
I know my woman.
Wait. So.
Sorry. Go back to your stuff. Yeah.
So the class stuff is basically there's this Atreides assumption, right? That like everybody who hates the Harkonnens must love the Atreides. Totally missing the possibility that a lot of these people probably just hate the entire nobility, right?
I am doing emphatic hand gestures at this point to support you, Alec.
And then there's this really funny moment, I think right on this page, or one of these pages right here, where Leto is like, part of him wished he could do away with all class distinction, and it's so petulant and mopey. A great Atreides mopey man tradition.
Well, what about the conversation where Leto and Paul are talking about why the other houses aren't helping them?
What about it?
Yeah,
well, it's just another group of people that they kind of just assume, like, oh, they love you, they call you Leto the Just, but they're not helping you, and it's because they don't give a shit about you, right? But they feel like they have some sort of loyalty from these other factions, or should be getting loyalty from these other factions.
Yeah, or maybe also the Atreides are in this weird place where the other houses like somewhat fear them but see them as class traitors, but then the like lower classes don't have any attachment to them beyond certain elements that have like a direct personal loyalty out of the urge to kill Harkonnens more than Atreides.
Well, sure, and Leto does say that they haven't seen who's going to win yet.
Well, here's the thing. Here's a radical notion. Why, like, similarly with the Fremen, they're like, oh yeah, the enemy. They're gonna be on board. They're gonna want to sacrifice lives to help us win this interhouse battle and the Padishah Emperor's reign and all. And CHOAM, they're into this stuff. They're in it with us.
They really want to stuff it in the CHOAM.
They just want them to go the fuck away. Like, with a lot of, I'm gonna venture, colonized people, oppressed people. It's not necessarily, well, sure, maybe you want revenge. You want those things. Another motivation could be, get the fuck out of here. Go away. Leave us alone. You're not from here. You're not one of us. Which would make more sense than, which is also is why the Bene Gesserit, like, preceding of, as in preceding, what's the better term for that? Planting?
I think they literally call it.
I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Dr. Brislin. I have a degree in agriculture, and I couldn't think of the term planting.
Well, they don't do a lot of planting on Dune. You've been caught in a Dune world too long.
Thank you. So just like the prescience, so that I do sound articulate, of the Bene Gesserit seeding of these mythic, just myths. It's not mythic. It's just a myth. You'll edit this to make it sound better. Anyway, putting the myths in place to rationalize and justify the presence of off-worlders, of colonialists, and embed it.
Although I also have a point about that's kind of interesting. Mainly, I mean, the Fremen have been here longer than a lot of people, but the Fremen are not native to Arrakis.
Well, we don't know that.
Yeah, you do.
You know
do
that.
We
don't know that.
They're humanoid, I guess.
It is implied within the scope of this book that they are human beings and that Arrakis is not Earth.
Oh, God, Alec, it's so obvious now that you say it. Okay,
so they are.
When worlds collide, Dune could definitely be in the same universe as all of the Ursula Le Guin, Hainish Cycle books, right? Like Left Hand of Darkness, which I don't actually love. The word for world is forest. All of the things where it's like this extended human universe, but they are like hundreds and thousands of years separated because of the nature of space travel, and then they have to re-encounter each other as if they're new civilizations.
Interesting. I have never read any of those, so you're out nerding both of us.
Y'all haven't read Ursula K. Le Guin?
Nope.
I need a minute. Are you serious? Okay, well, to anyone who's actually cultured out there listening to this podcast, I'm sure you can appreciate my When Worlds Collide. You have to fucking read it.
Okay.
Ender's Game, then. Ender's Game, also same concept universe. Worlds, like...
Oh, well, there's the relativity thing, yeah. Although this is... Anyway.
Shocking, you read the male author. The Mormon, weirdophile.
Way to steal my thunder on When Worlds Collide. I really was going to
I told you, Josh, it's Freaky Friday, backwards reversey. I didn't show up for the original recording time. I barely read the chapters in time for this. I couldn't get my audio to work. This is how it's
really
mine
rubbed
now.
Off on you.
I'm going to sing the songs moving forward. Just wait to see what happens.
You could do a 2-line. I mean, there's like a nice little poem from Gurney in the second page.
Poems.
Yeah, and there's 2. He
do
quotes
we
a whole
like
bunch.
those?
That ugly lump of a man.
My lungs taste the air of time, blown past falling sands.
So similarly to, like, does Herbert find Duke Leto charming? And probably, yes, he's his ideal. Do we find, I can't, now I'm like, oh my God, do I find Gurney charming?
That ugly lump of a man.
I mean, I am known to, like, fall for an ugly lump of a man, but the quoting. Oh,
His head full of quotations and flowery phrases. His heart that of an assassin.
Is this like Game of Thrones series? When Worlds Collide. I'm just gonna keep hitting these up. where Herbert actually imagines himself to be Gurney. Like, he thinks he wants to be Leto, but when he actually writes the book, he ends up writing himself as Gurney.
He is Gurney? Interesting. Was he that kind of, like, annoying guy who had, like, a quote for every situation?
Probably.
Every 7 chapters in the GD book.
Man.
He is both Gurney and Princess Irulan, but mostly Gurney. I can't believe I came up with my own... Josh, this is me fully becoming you. I'm coming up with my own Doonspiracies.
This is your final transition into being a Bene Gesserit. But you have managed to encompass the thoughts of both genders.
She is the Kwisatz Haderach.
Butch realness. Yes.
I use both because I feel like that's what was used in Dune by Herbert.
So here's the thing I want to ask about. For the whole chapter, the whole first goddamn chapter, like every 3 seconds, Leto is like, "They have tried to take the life of my son." Is he surprised by that? Because I was not.
He's so offended.
I was very, like, I didn't get it.
They could try to kill me, but they cannot kill my son.
Yeah, it seemed real weird. Like, did you not expect them to try to kill everybody?
He's not easily hoodwinked.
Right.
I mean, and he does come to the conclusion that they're trying to wipe out the whole line, him and his son included.
Yeah.
Like that, like when he thought of that it was like they're gonna get all of them. Then that was that moment of clarity for him.
And did we already read it? Isn't there a section, one of the chapters, where there's a letter from the Baron, and the Duke is like, "Oh, respond in the rudest way possible, per the terms of Canley."
No, it has not happened yet.
No? I could have sworn we passed that already.
No, I don't think so. I think we would have talked about that.
Okay,
it just sounds familiar because
see if I can find it. But it's like he is. No, I think we did because he. Anyway, he misses no chance to egg on the Harkonnens, and then is very surprised when the Harkonnens actually try to kill him and the people he loves.
Oh, that is an interesting point. I mean, there are a lot of really fun mind games he wants to play with the Harkonnens later in this little segment.
And it really stands out how several times in these chapters, in the middle of the accounting table, like the asset depreciation tables, they're like, the Harkonnens wouldn't hide agents in the outgoing units. They're not that smart.
Right.
No, not even that they're not that smart. They're not that imaginative.
Right.
Which I guess is maybe just to like show us how the Atreides underestimate the Harkonnens so that they miss the threat that they did actually plant.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I don't know.
I mean, it's just miscalculation after miscalculation. Well, outright saying, hey, the Duke wouldn't actually miss anything.
Sharp as a tack, that guy.
Yeah.
Which is then coupled with that quote later where they're like, oh, don't worry about it. About the little sneaker Snape trying to get poison jab Paul.
The Hunter Seeker?
Yeah.
No, it was a little floating robot with Alan Rickman's face.
The little sneaker Snape.
When worlds collide.
All right, Harry Potter. Okay. I was just going to bring it back to our very first episode when we talked about all the meetings in Next Generation and how that would have been our worlds collide for this week because they had meetings to fix everything.
And it's double worlds collide. I thought about this because it's also the Star Wars prequels, in that so much of the plot of these chapters revolves around like trade disputes, and labor contracts.
It was a little bit of a slog. It was a little bit too much like my everyday life of like, how are we going to allocate this budget? Do we have if I swear to Christ, if the next Duke Leto meeting has a Gantt chart in it, I'm fucking done. I don't remember that being in this book. If there's even a futuristic version, I am out. I'm quitting, like Josh.
But it's what every corporate meeting I've ever been to, it's what I've wanted it to be. It was the most interesting meeting I've ever attended. loved every second of that PowerPoint presentation.
Okay.
I mean, I've never seen a PowerPoint presentation that had ornithopters and carryalls.
You love an ornithopter. This is when we were talking about the video game, and you just started doing exactly this. You're like, oh, you can play the game, you can get a carryall, you can get it. Or
I found my Dune 2000.
It's blurry, I think, because of your background blur, but
Yeah, stupid blur. I didn't turn on background blur.
is it just actually like you're the inventory manager for a military warehouse? Is that the game?
You kind of are the logistics manager for the spice operation. You do have to manage how much spice you can silo. You have to manage how many of your harvesters get eaten by worms or destroyed by the Harkonnens. You do have to make sure you have enough carryalls to transport the right number of. But you don't want to do too many too soon, or you're going to run out of power. You're going to run out of money. You really need to build your operation at the right pace. Yeah, no, it's everything. Everything about these meetings is everything I loved about the game. You got me.
Okay. I love the idea of you going back and doing a review of Dune 2000 and being like, no, you guys missed the point. The combat's terrible, but the accounting is amazing.
It's true. I mean, the logistics decisions are fantastic.
That's real good.
This helps me understand gaming on a level I never understood before. Now I get it. It's a slightly more exotic version of inventory management.
It's really a lot of just-in-time logistics for sure.
Have you ever heard of the game Civilization? Really?
No.
It's a whole series that's mostly about accounting. It's about micromanaging cities to be too many of these guys are farming and not working in the factories. Our overhead's out of control.
Oh, Jesus.
And it's a very popular game series.
Wow. I don't know what Greg has tried to get me to play a couple games. Have you all played this
Wait a second. Is it a plot? Were these games all designed to create the next generation of middle management?
There's your Dune-spiracy.
That's the Ender's Game stuff, right? Oh, you're just playing games.
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, whoops, it was genocide.
So Dune, the video game,
shit, Alex,
is the real worlds
man.
collide. Dune, the video game, and Ender's Game. Ender's Game's not a game; it's a story. But it is a worlds collide with the Dune game.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. I'm taken.
Yeah.
I'm actually a bit shook. This is a legit insight for me. Is wow, I didn't know that that's what games were like, but
not all of them. A lot of games are just about how fast can you twitch, but
or how ingrained in your head can be the first person shooter experience be, so that you're ready for just absolute murder constantly. You just need to be really okay with it.
Cool.
So yeah, they literally are all just training people for different low to medium skill jobs.
This is amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Hopefully someone's listening that vehemently disagrees with us. I would love to hear an
maybe
alternative
this
opinion.
could be our first really controversial opinion. I'd like that. I'm going to take a 5-minute break to ladle myself some stew and get some wine.
Ladle it. We were also talking about how we kind of need more Bee Gees jokes when referring to the Bene Gesserit.
No. Although, you know what? In an uncanny twist of things, the things that get stuck in my head during this pandemic are... I don't know if they're more or less weird than the things that get stuck in my head otherwise, but it was How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees had a good 2-week rotation. Not even rotation, just a 2-week stint in the old noodle.
I was going to quote that when we started talking more about Jessica and Leto.
Let's bring it in. That one I'm willing to.
And she's more than a woman.
Oh, wow. Okay, Josh. I will reluctantly allow the admission of BG's
And
references.
Paul's just staying alive. I mean,
Nope. Redacted. That's terrible. All right, so
there was some social media stuff that I feel like I wanted to talk about this week.
Okay, I'm excited about that.
I just don't remember what it was.
Think about it, Josh, because here's a rando.
Well,
thing
Lily, did you see the link I tagged you in?
About how people are rereading Dune, and that's exciting. That's fine. Y'all look at this. I have something from the text. I have a textual reference that I think is really important for us to think about.
Break it out.
All right, so what's his face? Oh, Gurney. Gurney shows up with all his dudes, all the army dudes, in the space hangar.
And when Leto says, give 300 of them to somebody else, please.
Yeah.
Your best.
He's like, cool, I didn't need them, that's fine. I just spent so much energy training them. It's, yeah, whatever. I just want to talk about this constant reference to their space bag. He took up his space bag.
His space bag?
Well, and it's one word. For me, it's page 103. There's multiple references to, like, the men come in with their space bags. He picks up his space bag. He puts down his space bag. And it's such a...
I don't remember these space bags at all.
I just am so curious about what constitutes a space bag. One word, space bag.
It's actually a brand name.
Well, it's like a bag of holding, right? It just makes more space for them.
Oh.
Each one has a tiny guild navigator in it, just folding space over and over again.
Well, it could be a regular sized one folding space over and over again. It's a bag of holding.
Space bag.
Keep saying it, please.
Oh, I will.
Wait, where did you see it? On page what?
103 is when I had read it enough. 103. 103.
I don't know. My favorite moment on page 103 is where the Duke is giving Gurney instructions, but feels the need at the end to be like, and don't forget the men for Howitt. And I got stuck on that line for so long, thinking about how the fact that he just said that would have made me forget it. Like, I would have gone and done the other things. And it would have been my luck. I would have disappointed the Duke and forgotten the 300 men. Like, that would have been the thing. I'd be like, I would have gotten in bed that night. I would have had to email myself. Be like, shit, 300 men for Howitt. Do it in the morning.
Oh, yeah, he took up his space bag.
Space bag.
Well, so you refer to a trunk you take to sea as a sea chest. So maybe it's like that.
Oh, way to cover for him.
Well, I'm more covering for Herbert. Like, maybe that's what Herbert's thinking. Like,
No, that was the him I was referring to.
oh, okay, right.
Who else would have written space bag?
Shut up. Load out your space bag. Especially because Herbert was in the Navy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, no, so that's totally the reason. He wanted to say sea bag, but had to change it to space bag.
Alec, if I had to cast, I'm not ready to cast all of us yet, but you are definitely the Gurney Halleck of our crew of Mua'Dweebs, because you've got the maritime knowledge.
Oh, really? I really thought that I was one most likely to carry a ballast set everywhere.
Oh, maybe you're both Gurney.
Josh is the troubadour.
Hmm.
I may be more of the thoofer. More convinced of my abilities than I actually possess.
See, I thought a million deaths for Boyle was never enough. Would never be enough for him.
A million bags of dicks for Boyle.
That's right.
What I couldn't get over, other than
we're gonna have to get Leslie to come on and help you sing the song.
Maybe that'll be our penultimate episode. That'll just be the intro. She would be so delighted.
That'll be great.
We'll really be stretching our time zones then.
Oh man.
What time zone is she in now? She's still in Chicago?
She's in Jeju Island, South Korea.
What?
She's like, she could be going to baseball games right now if she wanted. She's living that post-quarantine life. I don't think she's actually living the post-quarantine life. But I mean, we talk regularly. Leslie, you're not listening because you don't like this stuff, but I love you.
How could she not be listening to us? I am offended.
Y'all, are your friends listening? Someone, a good friend of mine, a super dork, I say that out of love and admiration, from high school, was like, hey, I listened to your podcast. I actually really like it. And it was qualified that it seemed qualified and like, it was actually really interesting. It was fun. And I was like, what do you think I'm doing?
One of my colleagues said he was going to go paint his Gundams and start listening from episode 1 today. So we'll see what he thinks if he makes it to this one. Otherwise, he gets a shout out. He'll know who he is based on the Gundams part.
It's quarantine. I started a podcast. The assumption is it's going to be bad.
True.
Days before we started, I saw some sort of meme about white guys starting podcasts. So
shout out to me, Token LB.
That sounds like your version.
Token BG.
Alec, you take over. Josh and I are drunk.
We're just staying alive.
Oh man, I think it's my turn to start the podcast.
No, you're definitely more than a woman.
Stop. This is why I wasn't gonna admit the fucking Bee Gees references. I never should have allowed it.
It's your fault.
All right, so old Spacebag brings all the men in. I just want to reference that as much as we
my
think...
Spacebag brings all the boys to the yard is that basically just said.
Yes. And he's like, I'm better than yours. Anyway, here's a quote. He gave his propaganda corpsman a message to relay to the men. Those who had brought their women would want to know the women were safe and where they could be found. The others would wish to know that the population here appeared to boast more women than men.
Y'all who brought your fancy luggage, here's where your luggage is. And if you need new luggage, they got luggage.
Not just luggage, space bags.
The population here is 60% space bags to men. Yeah, I mean, again, it's weird, right? It's clearly supposed to be a point, but it's also not as, like, I don't know if it plays out as well for Herbert as maybe he thinks it does.
What's supposed to be a point? Space bags?
This, like, that the Duke is aware of how his soldiers think of right, how their first priority is women and access to women.
Yeah.
Right? And, like, Herbert's in his head, like, oh, this is a kind of a profound, observation, and I'm calling this out in some way. But it's like,
I will say, to be 100 pages into a science fiction / fantasy novel, and it is wholly unerotic. It's profoundly unerotic. No sexual tension of any kind.
Well, mostly just phalluses.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Dick metaphors, but not even well, you're right. There was a little one, but it was awkward in the way of, like, it was super
It wasn't
awkward.
that little.
Now, you know what does get a little erotic? There's a little table spitting scene coming up in
Oh.
just a chapter or two.
It's true. I did
I'm
enjoy
excited.
that.
There's definitely some sexual tension right there, right?
Because normally at this point, I would
I don't know.
expect to like
People were
figure
ready to
out
murder.
if it was like, okay, either we're going to like repressed homosexual tensions or like same-sex tensions, and we're just gonna not acknowledge that that's underlying tension, or it's gonna be overcompensating and like just gross obtuse sexualism. And this is just pretty dry. So I'm looking forward to this table turning scene that I don't remember at all because I don't remember anything.
You're saying it was dry. This whole planet's dry.
Yeah, I'm sticking with it.
Well, I haven't quite gotten to it yet because it's the chapter where Duncan comes in, but I did just go past again that section where the Duke says he'd like 5 full battalion of Fremen troops before the first CHOAM audit. And again, first off, anti-sexual. Second, just the arrogance. Even right when you read that that passage, it's amazing. It's just like, oh yeah, of course these guys will just show up for you.
Right.
Well, there was a smuggler caravan that left this siege while Idaho was there. It was carrying a heavy load of spice. They even had pack beasts.
Oh yeah, but so then starting on chapter page 116 to 117, right? Duncan comes in. This is also a weirdly, like, did Duncan not know that Stilgar was following him? I was very confused. It's like, it reads like bad stage directions.
Oh my god, yeah, Stilgar, how have we taken this long to get to that dude? He's the best part of all these chapters.
Parade of Daddies Part 2.
Yes.
Idaho. Stilgar.
The sand
Wilderness
dunes.
Daddy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm about. Hey.
The dance is pretty good.
Don't describe it. I just want the listeners to imagine like an awesome daddy dance.
They certainly are.
Awesome daddy dance. So a knife, my lord, a knife the likes of which you've never seen. Chris knife, someone asked. No doubt of it, Idaho said. Milky white and glowing with a light of its own like.
Don't unsheath that knife.
And then he goes to take it out, and Stilgar from off stage screams, "Keep that blade in its sheath."
Wholesome daddy.
Ooh.
But again, did Idaho not know Stilgar was right behind him?
You make a great point, Alec. I also remember being like, what? Where did this super couth, like, in the know dude? Did he not come with you? Did he like take a separate ornithopter? Did he
honestly?
Did he
had,
submit
he
a
had to have
requisition form to inventory to get a?
He had to have snuck up on. He had to have snuck up on him. Otherwise, Idaho would have warned the guards. They wouldn't have like held him at weapons point when he walked in. They wouldn't have had to like give him permission.
So you think Duncan told him to wait in the car, and he just like
There it is. That's what it was actually.
okay.
Definitely buddy cop movie scene. Scene.
I guess I'll buy that.
Wait in the thopter.
I'm gonna buy you a thopter model for
Please
Hanukkah
do.
this year.
Did you see how many they had?
No?
I did not read the tables. No,
is they?
Josh.
Oh, it was like 6,250 ornithopters.
Oh.
But only like 1 in 10 have shields.
Yeah, there was so much discussion of shields, and I was like, it's just not that
So much.
interesting to me.
Even the shield part got me down a little. I was like, what are they going on about these shields? Why do you need shields?
And I don't.
Gurney comes back in. He's like, no, I've got one more thing to say. The Fremen think the shields are funny, and the Duke's like, oh, okay. And then it's like the end of the chapter. Yeah, Gurney, we know. Like, we're done talking about shields. Even I'm bored with this.
And I don't remember it paying off later in the book. Like I don't think that's one of the great mysteries that's revealed is why the Fremen think shields are funny.
What I thought was funny was that Frank decided to call it a tri-D projection.
Well, do you think this was before 3D was like a commonplace term? Do you think
Shit, maybe. No way.
64, 65?
I am certain that
I don't
architects
think so.
were building 3D
models
out of paper and toothpicks.
Yes, yeah, no. Totally.
In Roman times. Well, I guess you had to have a sense of Cartesian versus whatever forms of geometry and cartography to
yes.
leave it there. Normally, in these sorts of conversations in professional setting, I trail off and then someone talks over me and then it's clear. It's not clear that I don't know what I'm talking about. I need you guys to step it up a little.
I really wanted you to play it out. I wanted to see what happened.
The Fremen stared at the Duke, then slowly pulled aside his veil, revealing a thin nose and full-lipped mouth in a glistening black beard.
Okay.
Deliberately, he bent over the end of the table, spat on its polished surface.
Yeah.
You're right. I missed all this daddy action. I was frantically reading before today's, and I missed the hot shit, man.
And then everybody's like, "Oh, we're gonna stab Stilgar," and then Idaho's like, "We thank you, Stilgar, for the gift of your body's moisture."
Alex, yes, you're delivering
right.
this Stilgar action to me. I want to reread this later. This actually isn't meant to be sexual, but it could be a metaphor for other things. But as a perfect overwrought by Zoom pandemic allegory, this quote about, so they go through all these, like, there's all the tension. Stilgar comes in, he kind of sorts it out, and then they don't know what to do afterwards because Daddy's gone. But Duke's still there. They're like, oh. Anyway, Paul's reflecting on it. It all ended in confusion, yada yada. This meeting had just seemed to trickle out, worn down by its own inadequacies, and with an argument to top it off. And I was like, if that isn't every fucking day of my Zoom life, I don't know what it is.
That's amazing.
Worn down by its own inadequacies. Like, put that on the epitaph of every bureaucracy ever.
CHOAM audit.
Have you audited your CHOAM lately?
Sad face.
All right. Anything, Josh? I feel like you got the most excitement out of the Ornithopter inventory. Is there anything we might have overlooked? I clearly overlooked some really delightful commentary on Stilgar for the grinding boringness that was Actuary.
No, I mean, at the end of the inventory, they started talking about the property that they confiscated from these Harkonnen creatures that were eliminated, and then they came up with this great plan to pretend that they were still alive, take the property for themselves, and then went into this whole thing about a ducal tithe where they're gonna essentially tax all these Harkonnen agents and then
posthumously, and then give the money to the Emperor.
I got so confused. Please explain to me what was happening. Even in this explanation, I'm confused. So,
yeah, let me find the page. Hold on.
If it's not worth it, don't do it. But I was like, okay, yeah, I'm past this.
It was pretty good. It was pretty brilliant.
To our listeners, if you ever get into a sci-fi book that gets into the little weedsy on the nuances of tactics and things, it's okay to be like, I don't really care, and then sort of skip ahead. Just skip, skippity pat pat. You just move on ahead.
It's because you were running late.
I do it all the time. Man, when it gets to battle scenes and like epic battle scenes and things, it's like, oh, so and so smote so and so with this blade, and then he parried the no, skipping it. Who won? Over. Who died? Who won?
Really?
Moving on.
Really? I mean, basically, they said they wanted to stop all of the smuggling and all of the illegal activities that the Harkonnens have been profiting off of. So they said they were actually going to make it easier for them to smuggle, make it a legit business that's sanctioned. Because they would no longer have to do it under the table, it would be less costly to the smugglers to make money off of their operation. So it would only cost them about a quarter as much as what had been costing them.
Right.
So it would make the smugglers happy. But then they would charge them a ducal tithe, which would then make the Atreides money. And then they would name the tithe in the name of the emperor to give the emperor credit and pay him the appropriate taxes on the income that the Atreides were going to get off of this operation. Therefore, the only person that it should piss off would be the Harkonnens.
And CHOAM.
And CHOAM and everyone else would be happier.
It would piss off CHOAM. And indirectly all of the houses because they all own part of CHOAM. But
Why? All right. I don't actually know what CHOAM does. I think it's funny, and I know it's some sort of cabal, like OPEC or something.
They're OPEC, right?
They're
Yeah.
OPEC, yeah.
In charge of the extraction and sale of spice.
Right.
Extraction, refinement, and sale of spice.
So if you have
the
off
smugglers
books,
are doing that without going through CHOAM, that upsets CHOAM.
So then why would CHOAM be mad if the Leto is bringing the smuggler trade on the books?
because he's not
Well,
shutting it down completely. He's
Yeah,
only
he's still letting them do it on their own ships without CHOAM approval. CHOAM's the only one that doesn't get any money out of this deal. Right, the Emperor gets money, the Duke gets money, the smugglers get money. CHOAM gets screwed.
CHOAM and the Harkonnens get fucked. And then they decide to double down on fucking the Harkonnens because they know that both the Emperor and the Harkonnens have these secret stockpiles of spice. And so he wants to enlist some Fremen on an operation to raid the Harkonnen spice cache. And then the Harkonnens wouldn't be able to do anything about it because they can't even admit that they have this spice cache.
Yeah.
So it's stealing
Yeah.
stolen goods, right? I mean, essentially what they're going to try to do.
So
here.
this is like a little bit of The Wire. It's like some mafioso.
Yeah,
sort
it is a
of.
little wiry, actually. That actually makes it more interesting when you tell me it's like the Wire.
I was all into all of that shit. I was like, plots within plots. This is great.
It's almost as if you work in like insurance and
And risk management, yeah.
right.
The best turn though on the whole thing was the scheme against the Harkonnen agents on the planet who have property, and essentially they decide to be ruthless towards them, right? They decide that they're going to kick out all their families, they're going to take all their property, they're going to take all of their spice, they're going to take everything from them, and they're essentially going to show them no mercy. And essentially they've got this whole plan to make it happen, so there's really no recourse except for the fact that they're all real proud of themselves until Paul thinks to himself and to us, this is likely to be our downfall because now they're going to have no reason to surrender to us. They know they'll get no quarter, so they might as well fight as hard as they can.
I'm sort of with Paul on that. I do remember reading that and being like, why?
Oh, he's totally right. He's totally right. I mean, this is the arrogance of the Leto regime, right? They think that they see from every angle, everything that's coming at them, every attack. He's so aggravated that they didn't catch the attempt on Paul's life, but they see how this is all going to happen, and really it was just Thufir's old. He's super old and leathery, and
just a big old space bag of a man.
And that threat wasn't there when Thufir checked the house. It happened from outside. You know, it was something that could not have been checked for by Thufir. So not his fault. The enemies of our enemies are our friends. Like they think they've got it all down, and now they're gonna start turning the screws to their enemies and picking up some Fremen legions. They know that the Sardaukar are coming dressed as Harkonnens. I don't know how that plot
that
came to their brains.
Big weird misstep there. Like, how the fuck do they know that? Why the fuck do they know that?
And maybe a Bene Gesserit told them. I mean, the more and more that they talk and they reveal their plans, the more sure of themselves they are that they've got it all down. And then Paul's like, I think they're missing something. But he doesn't say anything to anyone.
Well, he is 15.
And
it's kind of weird that he's at this meeting. Yeah.
But he is the Kwisatz Haderach.
True. Why? Also, where physically were they? I was so confused why the Duke was like, how about you post up on a couple of chairs with an old rag and, like, sleep it out? Where are they?
We don't necessarily know where they... I mean, I'm sure they said
it's like
right?
Spice HQ, right? I mean, this is...
Well, we know Paul had to fly there from the palace.
Oh, we did know that. Okay.
Yeah, they're like, this is where they're going over their inventory of equipment. This is like where all the workers and soldiers are flying into. This is like their landing base and storage facility, it sounds like. They got their corporate headquarters, their offices off-site from the home.
Yeah, so like the Ducal Palace is in Lexington, Kentucky, and they're over at Fort Knox, like checking in the inventory.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
All right.
But they don't have showers there.
The former Harkonnen base is over in Bowling Green, where Rand Paul is from, in his Senate district. And guess who's experiencing an unprecedented spike in COVID rates right now? Shout out to Warren County. My heart and thoughts are with you, but it's a thing. Rand Paul is the Baron Harkonnen.
No, I really thought it was that turtle face motherfucker.
You would think that, but he's the Emperor.
He's yours too.
Yeah, I know.
So,
are we going to talk about Idaho's dual allegiance?
Oh, is there a bond on his allegiance? Do you want me to do more sexy Duncan?
Please. I mean, yeah.
You wish me to go with him, sire?
I can't believe I missed this, and I'm just so grateful to you all for bringing it back to me.
I wish you'd make your own decisions in the matter, Leto said.
Like, they're talking about a polyamorous setup with Stilgar. Like,
would you have me under these conditions, Stilgar?
And still, Leto's the big daddy, right? It's everything comes down to like...
There'd be times when I'd have to return to serve my Duke.
And it's always like, yo, no. I respect you. I feel like you should do what you want. Follow your truth. As long as I approve, and I approve. I need everyone to hear that I approve of this in this room. They're of their own free will as long as I approve of it. This happens like 5 times in the chapters reread. Like, I'm not down with Duke.
A bond between us.
I do not stand Duke in anybody.
Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe this is a discussion for later. But, like, in some ways, though, the Duke is a far more democratic or consensus-focused leader than Paul ends up being. Right?
He takes counsel.
All of his decisions are based around, can I get everybody to agree on this thing in a way that they move together? And I guess that's enough for now. We'll talk about Paul's leadership traits when we get to Paul's leadership traits, but they're very different and very interesting.
I'm excited for this, Alec.
Do you think that the characters in this scene that know of Kynes know that when Stilgar refers to Liet having dual allegiances, and that being a precedence for Idaho too, that's the same person?
I don't think they've put that together, which seems real weird, given that they should all have like a document somewhere that says the head Imperial ecologist is named Liet Kynes.
Well, at first I was like, no, they don't know. And then later they do talk about Kynes and Kynes' dual allegiance also. So I'm like, wait, maybe they did put it together?
But I think that's after they meet Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe Liet is Kynes' Siege name, and I misremember. Right? Maybe their name isn't actually Liet Kynes. It's something Kynes, and then Liet is their Fremen name, and that's why nobody puts it together.
Maybe. But yeah, because in the last few chapters, not from this week, but they mentioned Liet also, and no one knew who this Liet was.
Right, and they talk a couple times about, like, oh, it might be a local deity.
Right,
Mhm.
yes.
Right,
So,
and that like, the dual allegiance, that's a very deity, like a pagan deity sort of trait to possess.
yeah.
Right, Herbie knew what he was talking about there.
Yeah.
Oh, Harvey. I feel like we're winding down somewhat. I would be remiss if I didn't mention like how the Duke sometimes thinks he's clever and coming up with a like brilliant analysis of things, and it's actually just. So he talks about on Caladan we had sea and air power, and
Yeah,
in
I like to
Arrakis-
call it desert power.
it's not as deep of an insight as you think it is. Man.
I think I wrote down desert power in my notes because I thought it was so dumb that he
So
really
dumb.
wanted to take credit for desert
I don't
power.
know what it is yet. I don't know what it entails, but I'm thinking in Caladan we had sea. Follow me. No, stay with me, guys. In Arrakis, desert. So the old noodle's working here. I'm thinking desert power.
Again, falling into my like half-hearted role as Herbert apologist. I think that at the time when this was written, the way you thought about difficulties you encountered in the natural world was still very much, damn it. Right? Damn it. Irrigate it. Blow it up. Right?
Oh, I
Just
thought
change
you
it
meant
to
like
what you...
nature. God damn it.
No.
That is what I thought you meant at first, and then I got there. This was another one of those
Booty or boot camp moments.
booty or boot camp moments. Exactly. Thank you.
Nature. Damn it.
Damn it. Not again. Right.
Alec,
so
I'm sorry. You actually were having an insight, and then I misheard you.
I think Herbert thinks that Leto... Again, we're getting back to does Herbert think Leto is cool? And I think he does. And I think he's trying to say that, right, everybody else is like, oh, let's just pave over the desert. And Leto is interesting because he says, no, let's have desert power. But to us, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, you really blew the lid off that one, buddy.
I like that you're the Herbert apologist. I can't wait to see what other things you have to apologize for, Alec.
Yeah, I'm interested in because like I feel like
Could a woman conspire against her own son?
They are nurturing by nurturing by nature.
they're naturing by nurture.
That was a slip.
The new fragrance from Benny Gesserit.
Oh, I let our secrets slide. Since I don't know if we've been doing a good job of reading quotes, but maybe I shouldn't have read this chapter. Doesn't matter. This is the fourth of 3 chapters I think we were supposed to read. There is probably no more terrible instant of enlightenment than the one in which you discover your father is a man with human flesh. From Collected Sayings of Movement Deep by the Princess Cerulin.
So, I just found, I think, 2 quotes that go completely opposite to everything that we were talking about earlier about the Atreides' take on the uninspired Harkonnen plots against them.
Okay.
Because then in the conversation where Leto's talking to Thufir about how the Harkonnens mean to destroy you and it couldn't possibly be Jessica, she would have done it years ago.
Not Jessica.
And then he says, this could be a work of art among vendettas. They mean to destroy you fully, right? Destroy you fully, your whole house and everything. And then they uncover the plot in their minds that they think about what would they want with a crysknife, right? What would the Harkonnens could possibly want with a crysknife? And in the eyes of a person with blue on blue eyes, this could be disastrous. And so both of those plans where they recognize that Peter could be that very Harkonnen that could wield that crysknife and blend in with the Fremen, those are two pretty good plots. They got some artistry to them. After they've said, well, they couldn't possibly be that creative. Then they uncovered two ways that they could be that creative, but doesn't seem to dawn on them that maybe they've underestimated them. In fact, they even mention that Thufir's problem was that he underestimated the Harkonnens, right?
Oh, yeah, right, because it goes like, oh, it was, you know what, Thufir, it's all right. It's all right, man. Like, you trained Paul well. He caught the sneaker. It was
sneaker.
It was such a simple plot. Like,
Snape, Josh, get it right.
Sneaker Snape. He caught the sneaker Snape. And
caught the Snape.
They're simple-minded. They come up with, we are too complicated in our strategic thinking. We couldn't even envision such a dumb, simple-minded thing. That's why we overlooked it.
Right.
It's cool,
so
man.
So much doublespeak. It's
right.
Crazy.
Well, under close reading, the vast preponderance of textual evidence is that the Atreides power structure fucking blew this. In every which way, right?
Yeah.
Like, they kind of saw the big plot, but they missed on every detail. Every single one. And that's got to be intentional, right? Like, he's got, especially with all the, like, counterfactual quotes, right? With Rulon being like, oh yeah, these guys were totally on top of shit. And then you see the behind the history where, like,
so are we going to assemble an Atreides blooper reel? Is that how this is going to go?
No, it's been done
couldn't be.
Right, this is
not Jessica.
No, when worlds collide, Arrested Development.
Yeah.
The Harkonnens couldn't possibly be so clever to do that. They were. Right? He's just constantly cutting to Ron Howard explaining that the Atreides are incorrect in this statement.
Who could we possibly trust? No one. Except people that hate the Harkonnens.
They could not.
That was wrong. Nope.
Yeah, they absolutely could not trust those people.
Well,
Right?
it could be anyone, but
it's
Yui.
like a highlight reel of people who hate the Harkonnens that have also tried to kill an Atreides.
Right. I love that version of this.
And the one we didn't cover, not my Jessica, I know my woman.
He did not. Yeah. I think that's a good ending spot, is we've finally settled that the end of these chapters is just to prove what fuck-ups the Atreides were.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want to
Except for Paul. It's all a test
Development.
to see what Paul notices is wrong with everyone else's assessment.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. How are you supposed to end a podcast? I feel like we're going to do a theme song. I forgot that last week. But is there anything we should say in conclusion?
Well, we could thank our adoring fans.
Yeah. If you are listening, please rate and review us, especially on iTunes. That's the only way we're ever going to escape into the broader Dunosphere.
Tweet at us.
We have a Twitter?
Yeah, we do.
I'm on the Insta.
Jabber podcast.
Y'all hit me up on Instagram at GomJabber. I'm blowing it up on Twitter. We have over 70 followers. So
I love our Insta. So it's probably my favorite Insta whenever it posts. We got to get more. Yeah. Does anyone remember the name of the other two?
Spice World.
Dune, Spice World, and Let's Get Weirding. Those are the other two Doom podcasts. Go give them a listen.
And then come back and tell us what we could be doing better.
Yeah, we're not really going out with a bang here, guys.